It's hump day, and I am ready to move us over the hump. Good afternoon. This is Tim Alston. Welcome to the 10 Commandments of Leadership. That's right, you heard it right, the 10 Commandments of Leadership. This is where we achieve two primary objectives. Glad you could join us. Number one, we seek to educate, equip, and empower emerging leaders with God thought leadership. And number two, we choose to present current events and newsmakers in the light of best practices from the Bible. Let me share a conversation I recently had with you, and I hope you don't mind me sharing that with you. I was talking with some friends. We were talking about issues of leadership, and they were talking about different things that make up good leadership. One was talking about having vision. One was talking about having a good financial backing. One was talking about um, having the right wife, the right partner, all of which was true. But there is one leadership tool that I think is overlooked often, um, poorly utilized, but the lack of it will spell doom for you in life, your personal life, your professional life. And I largely blame it on our educational system in this country. Do you realize that when we were in school, we were required to take reading classes, we were required to take writing classes, and justifiably so on both of those. When we got into college, we were required to take a public speaking class, all of which are important. But I contend that the greatest course that none of us has ever been formally trained in is the most important, fundamental, and foundational communications tool, and that is listening. Listening. I don't know of any school in the country, any school system in the country, and challenge me if you will. Please do. I would love to know of one school, one college, one university, one maybe high school, something that requires its students to take a listening class. And so what happens to most of us, all of us, I'm a prime example, is we learn poor listening habits. And as we go on in life, they just simply metastasize into becoming absolutely poor. But the key, the foundation of any good leadership program is to develop and to cultivate good listening skills. We need to unlearn bad listening skills, and we need to learn good listening skills. Let me give you a case in point. You know that I'm a basketball fan. I'm a basketball junkie. I'm a pro basketball junkie. And yes, I'm a diehard Boston Celtic fan from back in the days when my role model, my childhood role model, was Bill Russell. Now, Bill Russell wrote his book, his last book, titled Russell Rules. It's entitled Russell Rules 11 Lessons on Leadership from the 20th Century's Greatest Winner. And that is a fact. Nobody won more games than Bill Russell. I mean, and this is a sidebar. You can talk about the GOAT, G-O-A-T, the greatest of all time, all you want. But if the object of competitive sports is winning, then Bill Russell was the greatest winner. Someone once asked Bill Russell, what was your scoring average? He looked at him and said, 11 championships in 13 years. But anyway, I won't belabor that point. He makes a point in his book that I absolutely love. Well, I think I love. The chapter is entitled, Listening is Never Casual. Listening is never casual. And Bill Russell, number 6 of the Boston Celtics, asks 6 poignant questions. Let me share them with you. Do you find yourself trying to come up with a better story than the one that the speaker is telling? Do you find yourself trying to come up with a better story than the one that the speaker is telling? Number 2, are you nodding yes when you are not really listening just to keep the conversation going? Ask it again. Are you nodding yes when you are not really listening just to keep the conversation going? Do you make eye contact with the speaker? Come on, Bill Russell. Why you gotta be so mean? Number 4, do you find that you forget what has been said immediately following the conversation? Just kind of went in one ear and out the same, not even all the way through. Number 5, are you asking trivial questions to seem as if you are listening? Are you asking trivial questions to seem as if you are listening? And number 6, are you always interrupting because you feel you have something more important to say? Now, I don't know about you, but every time I look at that list, and I don't look at it very, very often because it's rather painful, I score real, real low. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget my roommate in college, one of my roommates in college, Nate Hines Jr., said to me, and I'll never forget this. We were at the end of our first semester in college there at Hampton Institute, and we were in the process of pre-registering for our classes for the next semester. Many of them, Nate included, had taken public speaking in that first semester. I did not. And he said to me, when I decided to enroll in it for the second semester, that spring semester, he said, Tim, you're going to get an A out the class, but you'll be the most hated person in the class because of the experience and exposure that you've had as a public speaker. You've been a state champion, you've been a regional champion, you've been paid to speak even as a teenager. He said, but your parents are both speakers. Your mother's a principal, former school principal. Your father's a first elder at church. So you've always been on the stage and platform as a speaker. And so your expectations of speakers are much higher than the rest of ours. But then he said something to me that was not as flattering. He said, you're a very good speaker, but Tim, you're a piss poor listener. Piss poor listener. And when you become a better listener, you will become a better speaker. You know, it took me some 30 years to really learn what he was saying to me. And I learned it when I began to discover the fact that I had an addiction problem, not to cigarettes, not to drugs, not to anything else. I had an addiction problem. I was addicted to myself. I was an egoholic. And one of the problems that I recognized was the fact of what he said. I could speak well, did speak well, do speak well now, but I was a poor, poor listener. But what I learned in the process, what really belled the cat for me, was that I later learned the fact that listening requires humility. Listening requires humility. Listening requires us to say, I don't know something. There's something out there that I don't know. But if I keep quiet long enough, I will get that information that I need to fill that gap, to fill that little pothole in my life to help me go down the road much smoother. Humility is real, real key. Let me give you the story. One of my favorite stories. 1988. It was the presidential campaign between Michael Dukakis, at that time, former governor of the state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts, not state, Commonwealth, and Vice President George H.W. Bush. Well, his wife, Barbara Bush, was on the campaign trail, and she was slated to give a speech to educators in the state of Wisconsin. Well, as it turned out, the speechwriter had not prepared a speech for her. So Barbara Bush, with those motherly instincts, did a pivot. She turned to this audience of educators from all across the state of Wisconsin and asked them, if you were the president of the United States, what would be your education priorities with respect to literacy, reading literacy? Well, you can only imagine what happened. These are people who were subject matter experts in education, and many of them were subject matter experts in the issues of literacy and reading. And they were just so happy to have been asked that question, that they just began to just pour out all kinds of information that she then grasped and incorporated into what became her husband's platform and program to battle against illiteracy and to fight for reading literacy. And so what she did in that case is turned from being a speaker to a listener. And that proved a very valuable point to me when I read about that story. When we talk, we actually immobilize ourselves. Immobilize ourselves. But when we listen, we mobilize ourselves. When the person talks, and when we talk, we empty ourselves of ourself. And so therefore our arsenal, for want of a better term, is empty. But those to whom we speak, they are getting loaded up, tanked up, and they're becoming much more fortified. And so I learned something that was kind of cute. And that was the same letters that make up the word listen, L-I-S-T-E-N, listen. Those same letters, if you reconfigure them, they will also make up the word with those exact letters. They will make up the word silent, S-I-L-E-N-T. The point is very simple. To be a good listener, one must be silent. One must listen. Listen with your ears. Listen with your eyes. Listen with your nose and the smells. Listen, listen. And listening will empower you. Silence will empower you to be a better leader. So many times we in leadership positions feel that we've got to have all the answers, and we don't. But when we throw out the question and throw out the issue and throw out the scenario to those who work with us or those who work underneath us, as the case may be, when we empower them, then they become empowered and they become the talkers and become somewhat immobile while they mobilize us to put together the programs. I hope that I've gotten the message across to you. As a matter of fact, maybe tomorrow I will share with you a video that kind of captures and capsulizes what I've said in roughly some 70, 71 seconds about how listening is a key, arguably the key in leadership. If we just did more listening, we would become much more powerful at home, in our social groups, in our worship space, and in our workplaces, if we would just listen more. Because when we listen, we grow. And good listeners make better than average leaders. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I hope that you've been able to grow from it. And if anything I've said has been an encouragement or an enlightenment, or an inspirational and or informational to you, then like it, share it, subscribe to it. And I'll be back tomorrow with another of the 10 Commandments of Leadership. Thanks again. Do have a great day. Happy Hump Day. See you on the other side on tomorrow. Bye-bye.